I'd like to welcome all of you to our commissioners meeting. And it's time to get our microphones on. And if you'd like to join me in the pledge, I'd appreciate it. Sorry. We'll get it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So before we get started, let me just introduce people. We've got Commissioner Huxley on my left, Commissioner Boyce on my right, Council Huddle, and our administrative assistant, John Jesuit, the far end. So let's start by looking at the agenda. Do we have any agenda amendments? Do you have any?
I do not.
Do you have any, Commissioner Boyce? Council Huddle?
None here, Madam Chair.
Thank you. There was a late submittal. It's a request to cancel an airport lease. It was emailed out to the commissioners yesterday evening. This is a tenant who is having some serious health conditions, and our lease provision with that tenant says that it can be terminated by mutual agreement. The tenant has sold their plane, so there's no real purpose for them to continue, and I think we'll be able to release or relet that hangar without too much difficulty. So it was submitted to you again by email yesterday evening, and if you have, we prepared an order for the board and would hope the board could act on that. It's to terminate at the end of February. He's already paid through February, and we don't have another meeting before the end of February.
Name a name, or is that?
Sparlin, I believe, is the man's name.
Okay.
And it's the lease of the only hangar that we own. There's 30 some odd hangars out there. We own one of them. So.
Okay, so do we want to put that on the consent agenda?
That would be a request from staff. Unless there's other questions, we could put it on, we could put it anywhere.
So I have no problem to put it on the consent calendar.
I have no problem.
Given the circumstances.
Same here.
Okay.
Thank you very
Sparlin
much.
lease.
Thanks, Council.
We'll put that on the consent agenda. Now, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I would approve, Chair, approve the agenda as amended with the addition of 4C to the consent calendar.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on. Public comments. We've got David Barnes.
Good morning. My name is David Barnes. I was here for the last meeting, and I'd like to ask this board, Mr. Huxley made some incredibly inappropriate comments, and I don't know if that's the way that he feels deep down inside or if it's just something that blurted out, but I believe it's up to this board to censure his comments. I think that we're going to have a hard time finding a person to fill this position now that you authorized at the last meeting. Mr. Huxley's comments have essentially, if I'm a man and I'm looking for a job, I'm not going to take this job because any woman who applies for it has grounds to sue you on the basis of discrimination because of his comments. I think it's a horrible thing that what happened. And I just, for you all to let it go without saying anything about it, I think is just wrong. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Barnes, you were talking about the code enforcement office position,
Yes, I
correct?
was.
Okay.
And Mr. Huxley's comments about it shouldn't be a woman who gets the job,
Okay.
that it's a man's job. So I just find it completely inappropriate for a county commissioner to make such a comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar with the addition of the Sparlin lease?
We have, that motion is on the floor. And we have a
Not
second?
the consent calendar.
We amended the consent calendar, but I have a comment on one of the items, but if you
Okay.
want to first.
So do you need a new motion?
Yeah,
after his comment?
to approve the consent calendar, and then we'll talk about discussion if he
Okay,
has something
I'll
to.
hold.
Do we have a second?
I'll second for discussion purposes.
Okay, discussion?
The 4A is Curry County 4-H Extension Service District Budget Officer Appointment. And what it addressed there, and I've just not seen one like this before, it's basically saying that we would approve authorizing that extension office to appoint anyone of their choice at any point in the future with the person unknown. And I guess it's a question for county council. Is that an extreme exception to the rule? Or have you ever, and your name was not down at the bottom either as approving as to form on the order. But I would think that the board would want to know who you're approving versus saying you can do anything, you can approve anyone you want at any point in the future, tomorrow, next year, 10 years, 20 years, and we approve that. And I don't think that's a prudent way
Yeah,
to approve something.
There could be some problems that arise
So.
because of that. County council, do you have something to input on that?
Well, you're the board for the 4-H extension service, and so you'd be delegating to them to select the budget officer. And it's appropriate to delegate to them that authority to delegate their budget officer. It does not mention a person, and I asked, and they said that's what was submitted by 4-H. So you can move to reject it, and with instructions to 4-H that they need to name someone. So yeah, I had the same question, but we weren't able to get it clarified before putting it on the board, and so this is how it was submitted by them. So you can, make a motion to bring it back with a name or something in the alternative, just approving it.
So, any further discussion?
The odd part is if you're going to do that, you would probably remove
We'd
it
have to pull it
from,
off the
from the
consent
consent
agenda.
agenda and then just move the other two items. And then vote on the other two items and then address this
We
one.
now have a motion and a second to
approve the consent agenda. Did you want that item taken out? Or just want
Well,
a
I
discussion?
would ask that it be taken out and then we deal, with that separately.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Are you okay with taking that item out?
Yes, Madam Chair.
So you want to amend then the motion?
Would you like to amend that motion?
I actually didn't make a motion. I was holding for him to give his comments, but yeah, it might have sounded like a motion. I said I'll hold. So I can go back and make a secondary motion, if you like.
Right, to approve the consent agenda with item 4A omitted.
So moved.
Okay, I would second that motion.
Okay? Any further discussion on that?
No.
Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so let's go back to the Curry County 4-H. I think it would probably be prudent, this is just my take, to send it back to them and say we either need a person or before we sign this. Your feelings, anybody else's feelings?
I would agree.
Okay.
I would also agree. We questioned them, and this was how they submitted it.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Simple enough.
Okay, so do we have a motion to send this back to 4-H and ask them to give us a name of the budget officer?
Sure. And we'll follow that up and bring it back
Thank
next
you.
time.
I would motion that we do so.
Okay, could I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Any further discussion?
No.
Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, no presentations, administrative actions and appointments. We have Federal Lands Access Program, FLAP grant endorsement, Rich Christensen. Did I say that wrong? Is it Christiansen?
No, it's Christensen.
Okay.
They spelt it wrong on the
Okay.
calendar.
I thought it was Christensen, so. Okay, way to go, John Jesuit.
No, it was Hope.
That's okay. It's all good.
But I knew you were pretty easygoing, so we can handle that.
Everybody else knew.
Just so you don't misspell gold.
Hello, Madam Chair and fellow commissioners. I'm here on behalf of the Road Department and Roadmaster Richard Christensen. It's Tensen. And anyways, we're working on a FLAP grant for Federal Lands Access Program for $2 million for paving Jerry's Flat Road. And to start the process, I need to have a joint endorsement form filled out by the commissioners and also by U.S. Forest Service. I'm working with U.S. Forest Service right now, and they sound approving of our application. And in fact, they're going to apply for a joint project, possibly adjacent to ours, so we could avoid matching funds, which would be about $205,000. So this may be worst case scenario. If we were awarded this project, we'd have $205,000 in matching funds. Best case scenario, U.S. Forest Service applies for a flat grant adjacent to ours, and if they're awarded, we could use their grant amount as matching funds. As long as their grant's in excess of $205,000, we'd have no out-of-pocket. So what we would like to do is get approval to apply for this grant, which is due, the pre-app is April 6th, and move forward with this project. And so I believe you have a copy of the joint endorsement form, and after you would fill that out, we would send that to the U.S. Forest Supervisor for their signature. In the past, the Road Department has applied for a FLAP grant in 2 years ago for approximately $660,000, and it wasn't awarded to us for the lack of U.S. Forest Service support. So we're doing the support letter in advance of all our work and trying to get this road paved for the county.
Well, that sounds like a prudent way to go about it.
So,
Do we have any questions of Mr. Christensen?
Just the boundaries on Jerry's Flat Road.
what we're looking to do is, there's several sections on Jerry's Flat Road, but we're looking to do a total of 7.265 miles. And we'd be starting at mile point 1.5 by Vista Loop intersection. Then that first section would end by Saunders Creek Bridge at 1.3 miles. And then we would start again at the old mill site at mile point 3.7 and continue up to the U.S. Forest Service boundary at mile point 9.6. So right now, our best guess using our information that we have on our road maintenance programs and their valuations, that it's about $2 million. But as we progress with this application, it may be a little less, maybe a little bit more, but I'd reach out to you at that point if anything changes.
Any other questions of Mr.
Just-
Christensen?
Thank you. Who's the lead person in the Forest Service you're working with there?
Right now, who I'm working with is the road engineer, Paul Podesta. And he's talked with the supervisor, and so they're working on their flat grant. It has to be in by March 9th. So I found out all this information, so I reached out to him about 3 weeks ago, and they reached out back, and they sound very supportive.
Madam Chair, I may have a conflict of interest because I'm on that road every day, almost.
Oh, okay. What kind of shape is that road on? Yeah.
Next question.
Pretty bad?
Yeah. Some spots, yeah.
Some spots.
So in the counties?
Great project.
County's in charge of keeping that maintained?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this would be real nice to have the feds come in and give you a grant.
Gets a lot of traffic in the summer.
Exactly.
A
And
lot of traffic.
it would save us a few $1 million out of our road fund. And so that would be a huge help to the county. And if we are approved, the actual construction would take place in year 2022.
Okay. So they're just gonna have to deal with the chuck holes, et cetera, until then, right?
No, we'll maintain them till then.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the going forth of this grant?
I would motion to approve as recommended by the roadmaster.
Second, Madam Chair.
Any further discussion? Okay, call for the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next.
Thank you very
we've
much.
Thank you. Next, we've got the order authorizing interfund loan for jail elevator modernization. County Council.
Well, thank you. I really intend to turn this over to Louise Kallstrom. I think essentially this is a follow-up, and also I think if Eric Hansen is here. Last meeting, the board approved the modernization contract with Straight Up Elevator in an amount, I think, roughly $50-something thousand, but there was also ancillary work, such as electrical and some other things that needed to be done. And what that agreement didn't do is identify the source of fundings for the project. And so what this discussion today is to decide where the funds to pay for that project. And again, this would be the contract with Straight Up Elevator, as well as all of the other work that needs to be done in coordination with that. So it's best described, I think, by Eric Hansen as far as the work, and then Louise Kallstrom as far as the funding sources.
Okay. Who wants to go first? Louise, since you're close? Do you want to describe the projects, and then we'll talk about the money? How's that?
Yeah, I mean, I have some, and I've communicated this to County Council, although he didn't mention it there, you know, with some other documents that were provided almost a month ago with alternates that were simply ignored. And that'll be addressed here also when we come to Commissioner comments.
Mr. Hansen.
Eric Hansen, Facilities Director for Curry County. Whenever you begin a project like this, you are required to bring it up to current codes. The elevator was installed in the 70s, 1973, and the code has changed since then. We've got the basics installed there as far as fire life safety. However, the new code requires a smoke and heat detector at the top of the shaft now instead of just in the equipment room. So we'd be adding a heat sensor and smoke alarm at the top of the shaft. We have fire suppression in place in the equipment room, which is also a requirement. And the other code that we need to step up to is if the power goes off, the elevator is inoperable, even with the backup generator going. That requires what's called a shunt cutoff elevator. And it's a new electrical box. The main switch is designed so that if there's a power surge, it would shut the elevator down. And the next step to that is, say somebody's up on the top floor and they need to get to the basement, there's a battery operated lowering device that lowers the elevator safely and opens the door. And there the car sets. Those two additions, the fire life safety is $2,200. I'll have CNS Fire Services come in. They do most of our work for alarms, etc. And the electrical shut-off switch with installation is an additional $5,700. That's all in addition to the battery lowering device is $6,500, and that's all added on to the $47,900, which brings the total package to $62,300.
So I have a question. The other bids that came in, did they consider these items?
Absolutely. These
so
numbers
those were
wouldn't
part
have
of the other
changed.
bids?
No, these are outside sources, fire life safety and the electrician.
Okay, so we would have to add this amount to the other bids that came in, the
Absolutely,
other two bids?
yes.
Okay.
Regardless of the vendor to do the
Okay.
modernization project. This is a code requirement. The battery lowering device We figure it'll probably be 2 years before it's required. And so while we're in there, now would be the time to do it so that we would be in compliance for at least another 10 years.
So they'd make you do that anyway?
They would eventually, yes.
Okay. Whether you had an old elevator or not?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Hanson? Thank you. Louise? I don't know. There's no USB, other USBs?
It's that thing standing up there.
It's a little, excuse me, it's a little less lively.
And Louise, you may be able to do that from the podium with that mouse.
Yeah, we have to have your voice heard.
Louise Kallstrom, County Accountant. And this isn't a real pretty little presentation here. It's just as much as I could do in the couple hours I had to do it. So these are the numbers that Eric just gave you on what he has to do for the elevator modernization project in total. I added a 10% contingency to that. Usually when you have a project, you have some kind of contingency, usually 10%. So I'm looking at a number of 68.5. So what I did was I looked at a loan amortization of the 68.5. I put in 3%. I know that the if I do a interfund loan, LGIP rate is 1 something. So it could be, I just did twice that, just in case it goes up, then we're at least still over that, that rate that the LGIP pays. In an annual, if we do an interfund loan, it's a 3-year maximum loan. So it would be the 24,227 a year. And that's the amortization on that. So then I looked at a draft of a 5-year plan for the Fund 233. Eric and I haven't really gone over this, but what I did was I added the current loan that we have is the courthouse window loan, and that's with the state of Oregon. And then I added this 24,227 piece to it for the 3 years of the 5-year plan. And then after that, it would just be the courthouse window loan still on there. So that's the funding through interfund loan, and that's how it would happen.
So I have a question, Louise. I was not here when the courthouse window loan
Neither
happened.
was I.
Is that through the road fund?
No, it's with the state of Oregon.
So what percent are they charging?
Off the top of my head, I do not know, but I think
Higher.
it's about.
It is a
It's
terrible loan.
4 to 6% somewhere in there.
Okay, so
It's
what you're
fairly
saying
high.
is you want to pay them off with this, and then
No. I'm just saying that this is part of the use, the project 5-year plan. This is the use of our funds that Fund 233 gets 120,000 or so from the general fund to operate projects every year. And this is a 5-year plan of how that money will be spent over the 5 years. We haven't,
I see.
We haven't
Okay.
finished it, so we're just kind of looking at these right now.
So you're looking forward to budget?
Yes,
Okay,
this was a budget discussion that Eric and I had.
So I have a question. If we were to repay that courthouse window loan, that's probably 6%, wouldn't that be a better use of funds and then just take that out of the road fund and pay the road fund back?
To refinance that loan with the windows.
Yeah. Oh, they won't allow you just to pay it off?
That is a discussion I have not even considered. So I would have to talk to the state of Oregon about early payoffs and what that would mean. I really don't know.
Okay,
but
I'm just
that's
thinking of-
something else that, you know, once again, this loan with the courthouse is over, it was over 20 years or something like that. So it's got probably about 8 more years, and the interfund loan, I just dropped my pen, the interfund loan is a 3-year maximum. So it would be a much higher payment to do the rest of the loan over 3 years instead of
Yeah, I think I'd just
the
check
8
it
or
out
so
to see
that,
the
yeah, I
difference.
can certainly do that. It's
Yeah.
just,
Time
I'm not
out.
sure where that would go.
If I may.
Yeah.
I've been in their office. It's through Business Oregon, and they don't. And I think Commissioner Huxley spent some time on this in the past. They're not really interested in, unfortunately,
Early payoff?
coming to different terms, or even. I've challenged with a little bit of a forgiveness on it because of a variety of reasons. It's just not a good loan. I haven't given up, but the primary person we're dealing with there actually worked in the assessor's office here 10 years ago. And so we have a little bit of a connection there, but it's worth an additional visit, and I'd be glad to do that again. And it's a long term, and it's not good terms. And so you're picking up on that.
Well, I'm just
and
looking
would
at an
warrant-
early
yes.
payoff. Is there a penalty for
They were
an
not
early payoff?
they were not interested in that, at least to the point where it would be a reasonable discount to do that for us.
Well, and
I
it doesn't
think-
even need to be a discount. We could just get rid of the high interest.
I'll certainly
just
have a
check
look
on it.
at that and have that as information for definitely in the budgeting this
Okay.
year. So if we decide to do something like that, we can budget for it for next year.
Okay. Commissioner Huxley?
That has been discussed with a previous accountant, and at that time, the interest exceeded the principal payments after like 13 or whatever
Well,
years it
of
was.
course, when you're
And-
doing
and
a loan payoff,
The
the
decision at that
amortizations-
time was not to, or the recommendations from the accounting
Yeah.
department after looking at it was not to do anything.
when you do a loan, especially over 20 years, you'll see that the first years of the loan, it's mostly interest payments.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're getting down to where the interest payments are less than we're over halfway through the loan, so interest payments are now less than the principal payment, so.
I just hate to pay interest, so
Yeah.
that's just me.
Yeah, and that's true. I was looking at that one earlier, but I wasn't thinking of refinancing it, so.
I'll be working on that some more to see if there's any amount of money we can save through Business Oregon on that.
Okay, so anyway, that's how the interfund loan would work. We would pay it off over 3 years within the Fund 233, and once again, that isn't the final 5-year plan. That's just the beginning draft of it. So Mr. Hanson and I still need to talk about that one a little bit. This is the current, as of January 31st, budget within, for Fund 233. And their total capital expenditures, the total budget remaining as of the end of January is $82,000. I have not had a chance to discuss with Eric what projects he has already started and what might already be in the hopper So I don't know how much of this 82,000 would be available to just pay for the $68,000, or a portion of it, pay it right out of this capital outlay right now. So that's another option, is just to pay for it right now out of available funds in the county, and this would be a piece of those available funds. So there's also what we've already taken a little bit out of non-departmental, this contingency fund that we called other materials and services. We had 60,000. We used some of that for the code enforcement officer. It's not reflected in this budget yet because it hasn't been journal entered into the budget yet. But there's $40,000 still there that we could be using for half, and use the other half out of the projects fund already in 233. So there's a way to fund it this year also. The last option was the one that Mr. Huxley referred to. There was a IGA with Coos County for jail beds, and this is a revenue that was not budgeted for. However, I do believe that the sheriff has already done a lot of work on the projects that he received this money to do, which is some very important upgrades to the jail that need to be done as soon as possible. And I'm actually going to let the sheriff talk to you about that projects that he has for that money that he is receiving for the jail beds.
So you're saying there's what, 58,000 there? Is that what I'm seeing?
There is a year-to-date actual as of January 31st of 58,000.
Okay.
Sheriff?
Sheriff Ward.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sheriff Ward. I just learned yesterday, a little birdie told me that this was going to be on the discussion issue, and I had no knowledge of it, of wanting to take money out of the sheriff's budget to pay for this, when it's actually an occupancy issue, not a sheriff's responsibility. So to start with, I'm looking at this recommendation, so to speak, by Commissioner Huxley. And in it, he says that on January 24th, that Sheriff Ward putting the commissioners on notice that they will have to fix this now. Let me read you what I had written, just to remind you. It was pretty short. And to the addressed, to say we have a serious problem is putting it mildly. The elevator is critical to the public safety of our county and sheriff's employees. We could not function safely without a working elevator due to the structure of this old building. This is only one of many issues that we are facing, but it's a huge one at that. We don't have the luxury to sit around and wait for the elevator to fail completely, or wait till someone gets stuck inside with a prisoner, or even worse, someone gets seriously hurt because of it. The elevator is crucial for the intake of incoming prisoners from all agencies. We move prisoners from the upper floor to the lower floor, vice versa, for daily court appearances. As stated, all food and other supplies are moved through the facility by this elevator. If we didn't have the use of this elevator, we would have to move prisoners up and down stairs while shackled and through offices and lobbies. Not good. This has to be addressed right away and the solution be given. We have no other options other than to cross our fingers and hope nothing happens. I'm not willing to do that, so I'm putting the BOC on notice that we have to fix this immediately. Problem now. That was basically it. And in his recommendations, if you go to B, item, I think 6, under observations, it says no response to Sheriff Ward's comments in 5 above is warranted. that seems pretty, you know, yeah, I won't even go there. But his option is to take the money that we have generated through revenue money we generated through the IGA with Coos County Corrections, parole and probations for jail bed rent. One, if I remind you, that one that Mr. Huxley, Commissioner Huxley, was adamantly opposed to. He voted against it. It was only by the graces of Commissioner Gold, Madam Chair, and Commissioner Boyce that you guys approved this, seeing the wisdom of us generating money. We already were told we don't have a spending problem, we have a revenue problem. So we sought out and got revenues for our jail because we have to have some upgrades that are really needed in that jail. For instance, we just, I want your special mouse. So
Don't wreck its tail.
yeah. So we went through a jail inspection here recently, and we did fairly well. But then we CIS came in and did a jail best practices, and one of their recommendations was the facility cameras are antiquated and in need of replacement. A capital project should be considered for the next fiscal year to upgrade this facility system. This money we were getting from parole and probation was going to upgrade the locks that are broken in our system, or some of them. I had one broke yesterday. I had to move a prisoner out and put them in visitation until we could figure out how to fix one of the old antiquated locks. And then the system, the video system, everything, we've been told that it's going to run somewhere around between $100,000 and $120,000 to do all the upgrades that we need to get done, as CIS is recommending. That's what that money's for. And for just to arbitrarily say, well, we're going to have it fix the elevator. Well, that's not a sheriff's responsibility. That's an occupancy issue. That building is a fixed building. The elevator is a fixed elevator in there, and it's responsibility of occupancy to fix that. I've spoke to Eric. He agrees the same thing. You're also wanting to put a line item in there to make it the sheriff's responsibility. Also, you're wanting to put a line item in there to make the jail, not the jail, but the courthouse one, the road responsibility. They have no clue how to operate elevators or fix them or whatever. So my statement here is that money is to go for what we need to upgrade, not to fix an elevator. That's not what we asked for it for, and that's not what we're going to use it for. If you recall back in last budget season, when we took the biggest cuts in the sheriff's department, extremely big cuts, lost positions compared to everybody else. And when it come down to the final, where they asked Louise, is a balanced budget, well, we need another $407,000. Without hardly any, waiting around to talk about it, Mr. Huxley said, or Commissioner Huxley says, take it from the sheriff. Well, that would have decimated my patrol division, and I mentioned that. And I said, but I'm not going to get rid of my patrol division. That'll be taken from the jail services. And Mr. Huxley told me, Commissioner Huxley told me, he says, well, it's your office. You can do it the way you want to. Well, you're right. This is my office, and I am an elected official. These monies were generated for a certain purpose, not to fix an elevator. It's not our responsibility. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions of Sheriff? Yes.
Just
Commissioner Boyce.
quick comment, maybe a couple. First of all, I'm sorry that you have to spend what I think is an unfortunate part of your time raising funds. I know it compromises your dedication to keeping this county safe. Number two, the parole and probation contract that you set up with Coos County, not only is it good for our county, but it's also good for them as a neighbor in this region. And I know they appreciate it. And I'm, I think, thankful that we can offer that to them and stay within that process. This letter that is dated January 28th, I just got this morning from Commissioner Huxley, and I'm going to review it some more. Well, it wasn't addressed to me, but that's okay. That's sometimes the way it's done around here. I'm the last to know, or at least I think there's plenty of evidence to that. And I'm sorry that you have to come here and testify in what fairly normally a toxic atmosphere, and I don't know why that is. This is only into my first year, and I'm really disappointed in that, because when we first knew this was a problem, I don't understand why we're not racing to your office to talk to you and your staff to say, how do we fix this the cheapest, best possible way we can, and how quickly can we get it done? So it's just unsettling to me, but that's it's just, I guess, a sign of the times, and it's really unfortunate. And I hope that this next year, for 2018, we can overcome some of that. And no, I don't think it should come out of the sheriff's budget. I think it is any building is just it's an unforeseen, unfortunate issue that we have to deal with, and obviously I'm going to be opposed to having it come out of the P&P Coos County budget. So, Ms. Kallstrom, I think you have potentially a good approach there, a good plan, and I'm anxious to support that. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Huxley.
Don't have any comments for Sheriff.
Did you have any further comments?
Oh, I do.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. The January 28th two-page memo that's been referred to here was a response from me to the inter-office emails between the sheriff and Eric Hansen and so forth, that it was an emergency. I sent that on January 28th to Interim Administrator Hitt and County Council Huddle. On the 31st, which was the first meeting that we had, it was either a regular or 1, 2, 3, it may have been a special meeting. I entered that into the record, this direction from Commissioner Gold to Commissioner Boyce, and it went on, or was supposed to go on, to the administrative assistant, John Jesuit, and go in as a supplemental document for that meeting. It never did. Okay. It still needs to go in because it was submitted, it's on the record, you can verify the video. I had discussion with County Council on this yesterday or the day what's today? Probably yesterday or the day before, I don't recall. That we had met on this specific memo, or this inter-office memo that I'd sent to him with recommendations, and we spent a better part of an hour talking about it, close to three weeks ago. When I mentioned this to County Council the other day, he said he would forward that. He didn't know why. He would forward that to the accountant, Accountant Kallstrom. Again, I went through, and I also asked questions here of Administrator Hitt, which I've never even received comments back. But if you go to the revenue and why, again, why Commissioner Boyce didn't get a copy, that would be a question for the Commissioner office staff and the supervision within the office, not to say that that's the way, you know, it always is. What I tracked also, and some of the questions had to do with the revenue and expense reports, the monthly revenue and expense reports. And in the month of December, there was a line item that was shown in here that was added as an additional revenue line item. Okay? And because there was nothing budgeted, there will always be offset by, you know, a dollar by dollar offset as far as in brackets, because nothing was budgeted, so we have nothing to compare it to. The rationale behind my recommendation was because the jail is funded primarily by general fund dollars, that revenue received and going into this account would also go back, if it were not used, would go back into general fund dollars. Had this particular line item existed before the last budget was approved, it would have, whatever that budgeted amount was, or that anticipated revenue from the jail beds between the contract with Curry County and Coos County, it would have reduced the general fund contribution by that exact dollar amount. So if it was 100,000 estimated, it would have reduced the bottom line general fund contributions by that amount. So in this situation, again, these are effectively general fund dollars that were not budgeted. They're going back in to this account that's been set up, and I would expect that this account would remain in the next budget year also. And because of that, that estimated budget amount would reduce the general fund contribution to the bottom line for the jail, to supplement the jail funding. To say that it's my money or your money or somebody else's, it's general fund dollars. These are discretionary general fund dollars. They're going into an account here. They are to be used, or if they were not used, they would go back to the general fund. And I think they would have to do that, or additional appropriations would have to be done to spend them on anything else. It is not set up as a separate fund for that revenue to be used for other purchases that the Sheriff's Department comes up with. These are general fund dollars. That's what they should be used for in this particular case, because they are there, and it would be the most prudent thing to do versus start borrowing through this road fund. We've got this mentality, let's road fund, road fund, road fund. There's some money there, let's use it. This would be an appropriate area. The funds there would be appropriate to use it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Boyce?
Just through the road funds and the bill that we have now through House Bill 3435, I don't sense that the commissioners are in a race to get to the county road funds, but there are options there, and it's the best analogy I can offer is tons of money stuffed under a mattress when meanwhile the house was burning down, and lo and behold, the sheriff and his department are asked to cut $400,000, and it's just shocking to me. So there's not that money is available, and it is rational to take a look at reasonable small amounts that can be secured, and so that's all I have on that. Oh, yeah, and then as far as the people within our staff, you mentioned Administrator Hitt, Council Huddle, Staff Jesuit, that I think in a sense of pointing a finger there, and I think it's all of our responsibility to lead in this office and to follow through. I give copies every day, almost every meeting that we have, so that I can make sure that you and Commissioner Gold are properly informed. So I'd appreciate if you would take the same time and make the same offer. Take the same responsibility. Thank you.
Council Huddle?
Oh, well, I'll defer to Commissioner Huxley. But
Commissioner Huxley?
Thank you. One other comment, and it was on that whatever that number that House bill was, and we had a prior meeting, the last meeting we had on that subject of bringing back a policy and an ordinance, and then with the thought of with board approval to put that to the voters. Mm-hmm. On January 10th, 2018, at that workshop, the last comment came from you back to, this is for the video, so as far as the source, back to Interim Administrator Hitt, when to bring that back, and his comment at that time, that was on January 10th. Mm-hmm. was that it would take a little time. It was complicated. He expected he could have it back in approximately 1 month. That was almost 2 weeks ago at this point. So that is still open. It still needs to be pursued.
I just want to comment on that, if I may. Excuse me.
Commissioner Boyce?
He is overloaded with work, and he's getting it done. So I feel more finger pointing here. I don't know. I just don't understand how that brings us all together here in the interest of solving problems. I just did I perhaps interpret you wrong there? You don't think he's getting it done?
I'm not going to.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not perceiving it that way at all.
No,
How I'm
no.
perceiving it is we need to get a policy in place, and that was discussed.
We had a commitment,
Right.
and we need to keep that
Council Huddle?
before this board.
Thanks. I just want to try to, the question before the board is, where will the funds come from to meet the obligations for the elevator modernization and ancillary work? If I could ask Louise Kallstrom, we've heard one source of funds could be the road funds, a loan from there. We've heard another source of funds could be this jail bed revenues. We've heard objections from using both of those funds. And my question to Louise Kallstrom is, did you find a way to pay for the work without using either of those contentious source of funds?
Yes, I did. The ones that I talked about were, there is a budget of $82,000 in Fund 233 at the end of January. I would have to converse with Eric about what his plans are and what projects could be put off till next year, revising the 5-year plan and kicking things down the road a little bit in order to do this emergency repair. And then there is also our little contingency fund of $60,000. That's down to 44 now. So some of that, or it's actually at 40 now.
And the total?
Some or all of that can be used against this and take care of it within this budget period with this year's budget. So
I think that would be a good
So what's the total
compromise.
amount we need, Louise, again?
Well, I did 68,530. The contingency I would have done mostly if we did the 3-year loan, because really, if it's in 233 and using some of that 80,000 and a little bit of this 40,000 or whatever, the contingency really is in Fund 233. So, in order to pay the ones that Eric identified was 62,300.
Okay, so you're proposing to take it out of Fund 233 and out of the General Fund 110.
Taking
Other
and
M&S.
doing a transfer from general fund to Fund 233 for, I really would like not to use more than half of this 40,000. So take like 20 over there, and then out of that 80,
Roughly 40 out of that.
the other 40 out of that. It's already budgeted, so we really wouldn't have to do anything
Okay.
but do a $20,000 transfer from Fund 110 to Fund 233.
I really think that would be a more wise way of handling this, simply because we don't have a policy regarding road fund loans.
And
yet.
I do have to talk to Mr. Hansen about, of that 80, how much is he already committed as of this date, and how much is still available. So I still would have to have that conversation. I could have that conversation with him now, and then if we do decide what you guys want to do, I can go back to my office and get the supplemental budget written up in the resolution.
Council Huddle?
Well, so we're at 11 o'clock now. Louise indicated she could bring back a more specific proposal to
But
the
I have to
board.
have them tell me which one.
Correct. If the board wanted to give her direction to bring something back similar to what she's talking about, and then
Could we
could
postpone this in the meeting for,
bring it
say, a
back.
half hour or whatever,
Well-
and then come back? Or
Well, a half hour being us 11:30, I'm thinking, if we just bring it back in at the noon hour. But yes, you can definitely move items on the agenda if you want.
So that you'd have a chance to talk to Mr. Hanson and...
Yes, but in order to talk to Mr. Hanson, I need to know what direction you want me to go. Do you want me to do the loan? Do you want me to do the transfer from the general fund?
I think a combination. Not the loan, though.
Okay.
Because we don't have a policy set up for that.
So I think you guys need to vote on the 3 options that were presented to you.
I think I'm
at least.
hearing consensus to bring back a more finite proposal with numbers from Fund 233 and 110, if they're
Okay.
available. And we won't
then
even
you-
know what those are without you talking to Eric Hansen.
Yeah.
So I think it would be to continue this until such time as she can bring back those
Yeah,
numbers.
I'd like to hear
so
it
you
today,
know-
because-
Right,
Yes.
so you know
Get
what
this
you
moving.
can vote on. And you'll still, that won't be voting a final decision. It's basically direction to continue this until she brings you back that option to make a decision on, and then you'll have further discussion on the options, and that'll be one of them.
Okay,
Does that
so
make
do I have a
sense?
motion just to
Yeah.
continue this item for another half hour or so? So, yes.
I would motion, I wouldn't put a time on it, just bring it back
Yep.
before the meeting is adjourned.
And
That
it
way
may be the
it's
afternoon
open.
session.
So
and-
just
yep,
before it's adjourned.
Yep.
Okay.
In that case, I would like to have the revised adopted budget calendar be the next discussion so that I can get that out of the way and then go get this done.
I'm all for that.
Good job.
The rest of you, you okay
Okay.
with that? Okay, so let's have the motion to continue this item, and then we'll go to...
I think I motioned that.
Okay, do we have a second?
Subject to the amendments, you have a second, Madam Chair.
Okay, all in favor? I think we've discussed and cast it.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, you got a good understanding there, Louise?
Yes, I think I
Very
do.
good, all right.
Okay, and then we're gonna go out of schedule here just a little bit. We're gonna go down to 8B, the revised adopted budget calendar. So, Louise?
Okay, so there was a couple of things on the dates here. And one of them was, the first one that I have to address is the BOC workshop for Administrator Hitt and I to talk to you about the budget direction before we finalize the proposed budget. It was scheduled for March 14th. I am at a conference from the 11th through the 14th.
And
And
I will
I'm
not
not-
be available either.
I am not available that
That's March
day.
14th, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and then the next date, I have to distribute, on April 6th, I have to distribute budget workshops to the department heads for the proposed budget, and at that time, I really have to have all the direction I need to do that. So the only date that we could have this workshop is March 28th. I've heard it's already slated for doing something else.
Is that the personnel rules?
The
or-
personnel rules. I would like to request that flips and that the March 14th be used for personnel rules, because this is the only day I can do this workshop.
And I will not be here on March 14th, however, and I would like to be involved in that. However, my hunch would be that would not be the last visitation or consideration of those personnel rules at that workshop. So I think I could catch up if I missed that day. So I think it would, if you're going to just have my availability be, you know, some kind of a make or break, I think I could skip the workshop and catch up and come back to the next opportunity on the personnel rules.
Commissioner Huxley?
I would be more inclined, because we did talk about that, that's the reason we moved it from the 14th to the 28th. I would be more inclined to say we move it again out in time, because I think it's important that
Okay.
legal counsel be at all of those.
All right,
Okay.
so that's,
And I have some other ideas on that, but I'm just going to bring it up during commissioner comments.
Okay, the second date that I wanted to change,
so you are getting consensus that the
The
28th for
28th.
the budget is acceptable to the board. We'll work on the
And we'll
scheduling of the
move-
personnel later.
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
very good, all right.
so I think that this April 18th date, I think it was scheduled like a week or so later than that on the first adopted budget calendar. And the problem with that is in between when these are returned to the budget officer and this date where it's passed out to the budget committee, All of these worksheets have to be entered into the proposed budget document, balanced, and then printed and bound for everybody for me to hand it out. And a week is just not enough time to do all of that work. So I'm moving this back to April 18th to give myself and my staff time to do all the work that is involved from this step to this step.
So you're making the department heads return their work to you sooner in time,
little
so
bit
you have more
sooner.
time to prepare the final document.
But these meetings right here, we did a lot of work on looking at this year's year-to-date, this year's looking at where we're going to be by the end of the year, and looking at what we needed to have for our budgeting next year. So once they get this here, it's just, the only change would be is if Commissioner Commissioner Hitt has some direction that he wants them to do. Yeah, Hittle.
Just say John. You'll get it all.
Yeah, I get
One
them
of
all.
the
I'll get
Johns,
everybody
probably.
in the room if I said John.
Yeah.
So they'll have, except for the final direction on the budget, they already have what they need to know for budgeting next year, and some of them have already finished their budgets for next year. So I think having a week and almost 2 weeks there is plenty of time for them to get those budgets back to me.
So those are the only two changes on the budget calendar then?
Then there's one more. It's been requested that I take out the Friday, May 18th, day of budget presentations and deliberations, and move that to Monday, May 21st for considerations for people who have scheduled several people on the budget committee and the board have things scheduled for that Friday. Once again, these are kind of tentative dates. If we get all the presentations done by Thursday and there's deliberations, they could approve the budget on Thursday. I don't know if that would happen, but it could, in the possibility of things. Otherwise, then we would be looking at continuing our budget deliberations to Monday, the 21st. So that's the changes in the calendar that I need to have. So if we could approve these, then that would be our new adopted calendar, and I'll have this calendar posted on the website.
So do we have a motion to approve the
New budget calendar.
new budget calendar?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Do we have a second?
Yes, second.
Any further discussion? Thanks for accommodating us on the 18th.
Thank you.
Good work.
Commissioner Huxley?
Just one request, if you would add a date, an amended date to that document.
Yes, I will say revised as of today's date.
Thank you.
Okay, call for the question.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Louise. Thank you. Okay, let's get back to, where were we? Okay,
We had
we did that, don't mind me. Okay, so 8A, to adopt final decision regarding AD 1705 appeal, County Council Huddle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this starts on page 19 or 18.
17.
Thank you, 17. It's the AGRS is on page 17. The order starts on page 19. It's essentially what you reviewed at the last meeting. It's got the approval and conclusions on page 20 of your packet. It's got the conditions to comply with ODOT requirements, county road permits, pipeline permits, those type of things, and then the findings and conclusions as submitted by the applicant that you've seen. Since that time, there was one additional finding added, and it's found on page 33. If you remember, the findings kind of went piece by piece through the objections and the responses, and there's a catch-all at the very end of the findings that basically just says some of the objections identified by the opponents did not really raise meaningful issues and aren't relevant, and there were some of those. The general rule in land use is if someone makes a objection, you have to address it. Instead of going through each, irrelevant point, they made a blanket, and this is the way to cover that. So that's the only change, and so staff recommends approval, and so just a motion to approve would be appropriate.
So do we have a motion to approve the
Application.
application? No,
So
the
moved,
appeal.
Madam Chair.
It's, the final order,
Final order of the
Yep.
AD 1705 appeal.
Yes.
Okay, do we have a
I
second?
would second it.
Any further discussion?
I just had
Commissioner Huxley?
one question for county council, and I'm pretty sure it's correct. I'm just surprised. On the page 1 of the order, the 1, 2, 3rd whereas at the bottom of that first page, you had the cutoff times. It was 4 p.m. on one day and 5 on the other. Huh? That they both weren't 5?
But they were both 5.
Well,
that could be a typo, and we can, we have a rule now that county council can fix typos. So if it was 5 p.m.,
Okay.
we will fix that.
Okay.
The only reason I could think it would be 4 p.m. in any meaningful way is because if you remember, we finished the hearing, and in this one, like we had reset the continuation of the hearing for 2:30 p.m. because we started the hearing at 2:30 p.m. There could have been some reason why that's 4 p.m. If it is a typo, county council can
Okay.
fix that per our admin rule.
Okay.
And it may be immaterial that it doesn't even require fixing. Typos are generally not legally binding. If it should be a 5, but we can address it either way.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Geez, we're down to announcements. Wow. Discussion regarding the BOC meeting schedule, upcoming 2018-19 fiscal year budget meetings. I think we discussed that already. Workshop, March 28th, 10 p.m. I think we discussed that already, but we're not going to be doing the continuation of the personnel policy manual review. We're going to be talking about the budget as proposed by,
And will that be a
Allstrom?
workshop then? Still
Yeah.
remain a workshop?
still a
Okay.
workshop,
Okay.
yes. And then interim county administrator oral report. He's not here, so are you going to be doing that?
Really, nothing to report, unless there's questions.
And then I think everybody saw the community development staff report and the surveyor's report. Any discussion on that? I appreciate that they give us a report each time. That's important. Commissioner updates?
Oh, hold on, we have a,
Madam Chair,
Yes.
will there be a meeting on February 28th, a workshop, and then general meeting on March 7th?
There's going to be a workshop on the 28th.
Okay, there will be.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
do we have a topic, do we know?
I think Ms. Kallstrom said that she wanted to be talking about the budget.
Okay.
And March 7th, just our next general meeting.
Yeah, March 7th is the next general meeting, and March 14th, we're nixing the workshop. We're not having that, so.
So, I'm sorry, then so the February 28th is a workshop date. So the subject is going to be,
February
Next week.
28th? Oh,
Next week.
oh,
Yeah,
I'm not
so
sure.
it's-
That
what
was the
I-
question
Yeah.
from staff is,
Yeah.
do the commissioners have a topic for a workshop for
So,
the 28th, or
you
should we
mentioned
have
the budget. I
one?
thought you responded.
Oh,
with
no,
the
no, no,
budget.
that was.
March 28th?
March
is
28th.
Okay, so back to the question of February 28th.
That's the question for the board. That's what
Correct.
staff's looking for, is direction from the board. If we don't have a topic, we don't need to have a meeting.
It's okay with me.
Okay,
Okay.
so.
We don't have a
But
topic
your
currently.
response was, you were thinking
I was
March
thinking March
28th.
28th.
Okay,
I
so-
apologize.
Okay,
Yeah.
so no.
Okay, so there's no workshop,
So next regular meeting will be March
March 7th.
7th. Okay.
Okay.
So no, and then so no.
And I don't believe there's going to be a workshop on March 14th either, is there? I hope not.
I will not be here.
And neither will I. I have a definite conflict I
takes
have
care
to
of
take
that.
care of.
And I think that was what we did on the scheduling there.
Okay.
So are we going to say, then Chair, are we saying no workshop on February 28th or March 14th?
That's
So-
right.
That's the current status. Now, John Hitch should be
Okay.
back by then, and he may have something for
Okay.
what's
March.
left of the board on the 14th, but we
That's
don't know
true.
that
Yeah.
for sure. But right now, we don't have anything currently scheduled for
Okay.
the board.
Okay. So moving on, we have commissioner updates. Commissioner Boyce, do you have anything to update?
My alphabetical order again.
No, we're just going as
Last
Mr.
time I said
Jesuit.
let him go first. No, it doesn't. That's
Nice
fine.
try.
When I was a kid, alphabetical order, man, I got to go to lunch first, but I need could you help me, Mr. Jesuit, with the, oh yes, and plug in our, whatever you call it, U drive, the U drive.
Port, the USB.
Drop, so
we gotta-
I want to make sure it works. 'Cause that was
It's
the-
still,
that was
it's still
dropped.
flashing.
Okay.
Looks like it
It's
works.
flashing.
Now you have the USB, did you say, Commissioner, or something else? Oh, there it is.
Well, maybe it didn't get taken out. Oh, there we go. Update. Somewhat limited, but David Rock Smith and I have been working on a tour of honor for Southern Oregon and the Veterans Memorials. In this part of the state, we have some fabulous, let's see, I'm having trouble getting over the border here.
Use that roller, I think, will
There we go.
help get down.
Thank you. You can start anywhere, but if you start at Gold Beach, we're pretty proud of this facility. This thanks to work of the Vietnam Veterans Association, former Commissioner Susan Brown, and others. We're just starting into our 4th year with this. So then you head down towards the California-Oregon border, 197 to Central Point. I've been to this memorial many times, and it is just really a very, very special place. Eagle Point, probably many in the room have been to the National Cemetery there. Likewise, just an incredible place to honor our veterans. Merlin, little community of Merlin. My oldest grandson and I were here just prior, a couple days before the fire, and also likewise special. Veterans, Foreign Wars Remembrance Wall. So after we left Eagle Point, then to I-5 to Merlin, then up to Roseburg, and then Highway 38 as you go over to Reedsport down to the upper end of North Bend there, the slough, and this is also a fabulous place here, the David Dewitt Veterans Memorial. And Council Huddle reminded me, and I have some friends in Brookings that are working on the update for Medford, the replica of the Vietnam Veterans Association, Washington, D.C. They've raised about $400,000. That will be at the U.S. Cellular Park. And
Is that the one that comes around?
similar
Yeah,
to
'cause
that
I went to the
program.
one in
But they're
Crescent
going to have a
City.
permanent one.
Oh, I
and
see.
so we're doing some work on that, and I think it's going to be completed about 1.5 years from now. And certainly it will be included in our loop tour, but also included are in the different communities other memorials with addresses. Eventually, I hope we can raise money through motorcycle groups that can send money, funds, support back to different veterans organizations. Additional one in Roseburg, of course, Coos Bay, Brookings. Some of you have been here. Again, special. Coos Bay. So more to come. This is a little preliminary, but can be done in a day if you start early and in late. Of course, you can start any one of the cities of the 6 and go from there. This is a plan I set out in January of 2017, a year ago, a little over a year ago. This is now on the website for people to review, contact me, ask questions, directions for the county on how we can solve some of the problems we have, certainly resource. This is pretty lengthy, so I'll scroll reasonably fast here. This was in the pilot last week, so it was a year later, unfortunately, though this is still pretty relevant to where we are right now and some of the county issues that we have. So again, all this is on the Court Voice website. And this is 7 pages of what I've been working on for the last, for 2017. I'll go over just some real quick here. Voluntary pay cuts, sheriff's annual pay amendment, the county administrative officer, looking at a 4-day work week for some, perhaps most of our departments, other than the sheriff's department and the road department and planning are already on that. Additional funds might be coming from All Care. We just have to work on that. The Curry County Head Start program, tried to stay involved in that and see if there's a way to legitimize keeping this $1.6 million community block development grant. Getting all of the other elected officials and department heads build bridges. I'm still looking at a consumption tax advisory committee. Nobody has the benefit that Curry County has, other 36 counties in the state of Oregon. If we did a 2.5% sales tax, the people that come over the border to shop could be very supportive for some of the responsibilities we have within our county and the lack of revenue that we're continually faced with. And of course, the biggest concern I have, and I've communicated this in the past, that if the state of Oregon ever does a sales tax, then they will have the precedent set, and we will not be able to have local city and county taxes. Somehow that one didn't get a number. The Curry County Parks Advisory Committee have been turned down twice on that with this board. I think that has merit. The marijuana issue, I'll let that go today, but I'm going to be keeping up on that with responsibility of diligence. Getting to know all the other commissioners better all the time. The workshops that I've put in place for our board here. The public land management issues, notwithstanding, of course, the Chetco Bar fire, that is a direction that the western states are trying to affect change, and so it's just something we really have to be on our toes with there. Different port and city council meetings, fire awareness meeting that I set up coincidentally 1 week before the discovery of the Chetco Bar fire, Association of Oregon Counties. I will have a report for you on the lawsuit there to challenge the federal government to comply with the law. The ONC laws that were established back in 1937. Information there. Sudden oak death, thanks to David Brock Smith and Senator Merkley, we may have as much as $1 million to battle this in the near future. And that is, of course, critical. Gorse action. That's interesting that it's mostly in Port Orford, and now it's showing up fairly extensive in Brookings, not so much in Gold Beach, so, and other invasive species as well. Different boards that I've been appointed to or elected to within the county and within the western part of the states. There's a courthouse window issue. I hope to bring something back to the board that shows we can save a little money on that. Public awareness in emergency, the Cape Blanco exercise, just about done here. Wild Rivers Coast Forest Collaborative, most recently, of course, working with attempting to get as much in the way of reasonable salvage as we can on the burned Chetco Bar fire timber. Oregon State Parks, good bunch of people there that are community-minded. I could talk about this, of course, for a couple hours. In the website, eventually I'll have all these, Bureau of Land Management, Bay Area Emergency Response course, the U.S. Forest Service, Federal Emergency Management, quite a list there. And I hope we don't have to deal with this again anytime soon. Led quite a few burn area tours, burn timber salvage. We just have to keep the pressure on there, and that's not closed yet. I'll be meeting the new supervisor again, interim, Friday. Road closures, wild horse fire abatement. Commissioner Gold, that still has some good potential there, so I'll be asking for your potential support on that within all the board here. Group in Brookings has been very energized to do everything they can to prevent another fire and understand all that they can about ways that we can achieve that. And then through the federal emergency declaration for Curry County, I'm working consistently on that for private property compensation. And I'll have just, of course, the Firewise communities, we're making some progress there. This is the 2018 goals, somewhat related to 2017. One thing I had in here was I was turned down on, where is it? Security for this building. And just a quick story, I was here on a Sunday morning, got here about 7:30, working in the office, went out, come out into the hallway, smelled cigarette smoke, and was not sure it was cigarette smoke, but I thought it was possibly wire, so a wire fire, and called the sheriff's department. They didn't have a deputy. They contacted the city of Gold Beach for me again. This is on a Sunday morning. While he is on his way, while the officer's on his way here, I checked every cubby hole in this place. I knew somebody was in this building, but I couldn't find them. And so when the officer got here, we checked every place again. He still smelled the smoke. He confirmed that he believed it was cigarette smoke and not wire smoke. And then later on, as you know, we had the video verify that it was somebody in the building that probably stayed here that night, and Administrator Hitt was involved in that. So, yeah, that's 2018, what I'm looking for. And then this is the qualifying of Curry County for the federal disaster declaration. It's a long road to go, as you know. But when you look at all the issues outside the Chetco Bar fire that this county's been faced with over the last 10, 15, even 20 years, and of course presently sudden oak death, dorsal invasive species, the sport and commercial fishing restrictions, and this is being continually updated. One would be the Lost Creek Reservoir. The Corps of Engineers department was obligated when that dam was first built back in the mid-70s to maintain a certain amount of salmon, spring salmon Chinook hatchery production, and they have not lived up to that. And so now what we have in our bay, and that's not on this list. I'm working on a good paragraph to get to include in this document. But that is something that is really hurting our summer season, hurting our guide industry. You had biomass projects that we could have pursued if we had a healthier economy. The mega fire summer smoke, rising crime resulting from less prevention-related property value drops, severely reduced ONC, of course, U.S. Forest Service timber receipts, the 2015 harbor sinkhole, 2011 tsunami. Problems we have at the port of Brookings Harbor, back to the marijuana issues, the Chetco Bar fired timber. You know, we've lost several $1 million, or maybe as much as $40 million. And I think that's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm next. Just a couple of matters. One, I was thinking about the personnel rules and a way to approach this more efficiently. I was thinking about possibly coming up with a committee that would include Councilor Huddle and Commissioner Huxley and Administrator Hitt to get together to come up with suggestions. I'm personally going through all of the personnel rules and marking suggestions or questions as I go through, and maybe have that committee come back with, we'll give you the suggestions, and then come back with a more succinct way of doing this rather than a long, involved process.
Sure.
Councilman Tuttle?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I prefer that the board not create a committee. Committees are subject to the public records and meeting laws. So I think just an informal work group, if any individual commissioner wants to talk to myself or any member of staff about the personnel rules to, in advance of a workshop to make the workshop time be spent more effectively, that's perfectly okay.
Yeah, I just want it to be more effective.
Okay. Yeah.
Any other comments on that, Commissioner Huxley?
Well, I understood that had occurred prior to this, and that was the impetus behind all of the recommendations to begin with, that there had been exactly that is what had occurred.
I think it had occurred in part, but then once the product was presented, there was additional, fine tuning of the work. And I think the idea is that some of that fine tuning could take place outside of the public sphere for purpose of meetings and recordings and all the, ancillary costs that are associated with us running one of these public meetings is all. So.
Yeah, I was just hoping we could get a little more efficient.
Sure.
That's all.
Because it had also been discussed from what I understood, also at management meetings, and people had over a period of weeks had the opportunity to input back.
Okay, well, maybe we could give you further input.
Well, and if I could, just some of the genesis of the recent changes to the personnel rules, which were, I think, recently adopted in 2014 and have been updated on an annual basis with respect to changes of state law that we have to incorporate. But this time it was to incorporate the position of the county administrator into the personnel rules and essentially, replace Board of Commissioners with county administrator. And that was the start. But then once we started looking at it, we started to get into a broader scope. And I think with that, I think we can take another look at the personnel rules at a more, and I think what would happen is myself, Commissioner Huxley, John Hitt, and Julie Swift could get together and go over them article by article. And if you wanted to send your comments to John Hitt, that would be fine. Yeah.
Before that happens,
Okay.
I'm just thinking in terms of efficiency.
Of the public time.
Yeah,
Yep.
of the public time.
But
yes.
nevertheless, each change, so I think what the public time would make sense would be to show, here's what the old rule was, here's what the change is, and at least that way everyone would benefit from see the work that was done, but not do the work in the public.
Right.
Okay.
That's
All right.
where I was
Very
going.
good. Okay.
Okay, I had one other issue here that I'm
I
going
need to
bring up.
comment
Yes.
on that. Please, thank you.
Mr. Boyce.
I just want to state my position that I think that you just mentioned Julie Swift, Administrator Hitt, that's expensive time. Could we possibly consider that this is not our highest priority and we could put this off till after the budget, maybe through the summer when we're back, everybody from vacation time off, and not make this a priority now? I don't understand go ahead.
Thanks.
Councilman.
Part of the reason why it's a priority is because Administrator Hitt or whoever our administrator is has to have the authority. So what we're doing is transitioning to give the authority under the rules to the administrator position, and without that position is not as effective as it's intended to be. So it's part of that priority of the delegation of authority from the board to the administrator. So it's a pretty good priority. So I think, and it is work that needs to be done. And again, I think I don't think it'll get in the way of preparing the budget or working on the budget or any of those items.
Well, just thank you, but we don't even know if we can afford a county administrator beyond the end of 2018. So
Yeah, that's up to the board.
I'm just concerned that then we'd have to reverse all of this back to commissioners if we could even afford commissioners. So just in the interest of the highest possible priorities.
Okay, I had one other item. Earlier, I can't remember the date, I was given permission by the board to come up with a letter to go to Sutter Coast Hospital Board of Directors And I came up with that letter. I'll just read it very quickly. Sutter Coast Board of Directors and CEO Mitch Hannon, the issue of Sutter Coast Hospital's extremely high health care service charges has been repeatedly brought to our attention. These excessive charges on the citizens of Curry County result in severe hardships financially, emotionally, and physically. We are also concerned about the total lack of transparency in posting your service charges, as well as excluding public knowledge of and input to your board meetings. We support the concept that tax-exempt public benefit corporations should be accountable to the public. You are surely aware that these issues were addressed in this commission in June of last year. The presentation provided by Carlos Priestley, Sutter Coast Hospital Administrator, at the BOC meeting advocated that we rescind the letter of concern at that time. We respected his request with the assurances that specific issues would be addressed and resolved by January of this year. Unfortunately, there has been no additional communication nor resolution of the negative impacts on the citizens of both Del Norte and Curry counties. A primary concern regards the repeated promises by Sutter that the M-Care contract for emergency room services would be remediated in the contract renewal January 2018. This has not occurred. In fact, Mr. Priestley's recent presentation at the Del Norte Health District meeting verified that M-Care is continuing to be the sole emergency care provider, yet the issue of outrageous and unwarranted charges to out-of-network patients has not been addressed or resolved. We are sure that you and the administrator of Sutter Health Corporation are cognizant that both Curry and Del Norte counties are designated as medically and provider underserved by our federal government. Relevant components of these designations include our poverty levels, age population, and rural and remote location. To impede and or effectively deny essential emergency care by your charges and contractual agreements is in direct contradiction to the purpose and intent of the federal state tax exemptions for hospital corporations. As commissioners, we have an obligation to advocate for affordable, accessible, and effective health care for our constituents. It should be to our mutual benefit to provide the interests and well-being of our citizens, since they constitute approximately 1/3 of the service provision and revenue to Sutter Coast. Our request is that Sutter's excessive charges and out-of-network contractual agreement with M-Care be reviewed and revised as promised. Further, we request that all charges, costs of care be established within market averages and provided publicly in accord with the public's right to informed consent. Sincerely, and then us. But I've got copies for everybody. We don't have to take any action on this right now, but you can look at it. As far as research, where to get some of the information, Dr. Greg Duncan would be happy to answer any questions on research as far as the charges being made, the outlandish charges, I should say, because he has done quite a bit of research in that area. So that's it for my report.
Okay.
Commissioner Huxley.
So then that copy goes to the administrative?
Yes, it went to everybody.
Okay.
I didn't even put it on official.
Okay.
Are you seeking board approval or adoption of that at some time?
At
Commissioner
some
Bowe?
time, yes.
Okay.
So, but I want people to be able to read through it
Okay.
and come back with questions if they have questions or if they want revisions,
So
whatever.
that'd be at our next meeting in a couple weeks,
Right.
probably. Okay,
Right.
very good.
But you have not sent this yet.
No, I'm not going to send it without
I
everybody
misunderstood
agreeing.
you. Thank you.
Because I do not act alone. I act as a board member here.
This is a question or request for John Jesuit. Would you do me a favor and hand me that the keyboard and the mouse, please? And then if you could,
Is the mouse here?
yeah, oh yes, please.
Oh, there's another one. Okay.
And then if we could just get, I'm going to give you one copy here, and then I have other copies. This is a colored copy of what I'm going to just go over here. There's two documents, and if we could, you know, the electronic version is on there, and you can have that also, but this is the one This is the other one. I'm going to start with this one, and I'm going to hand these out to the, and then we want to get to the screen where I can click on the link.
Can we interrupt you for just a
Surely.
minute?
We want to do this first?
Yeah, let's do this first, and then we'll go back to the commissioner's report.
Put it on this thing so that I can, I have to go back and scan it or do you want to just?
Why don't you just tell us what you came up with? Is it simple?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we can handle it.
Well, that's okay. But
No, I just didn't want to waste her time any further. I mean, ours is,
so are we approving something you're,
well, we wanted to
Versus-
approve the way the elevator could be financed. Right.
but are we approving that document right now that we haven't seen? I would like to, sure, I would like to see it.
Yeah, why don't you just get us a copy? That would be,
Yeah.
that would be good.
Yeah. And then we can have that go into the record also.
Okay, should we take a 5-minute
Surely.
break?
Surely. Thank
Stand
you.
up, stretch, come back. He's gonna make it real quick, right, Carl?
Carl King, Nasika Beach. I am, as you know, a member of your budget committee. And prior to two of you being on this board, we had a very interesting episode at one of our budget hearings. We were discussing how to deal with the fact that a budget had been overspent the year before and how to treat with paying back the loan that had been given to that department to cover it, when we discovered that year to date of the year we were sitting there, that same department was overspending the budget again. Now, the way we learned of that was only because we were talking about the fact that we had to deal with the overflow overspending the year before. Now, your discussion earlier on the elevator points out the value of having these periodic revenue and expense reports that you get every month. They're delayed a month. You obviously have in front of you or have available to you now the one dated January 31 that covers all the revenue and all the expenses, each line item. And, you know, I frankly was looking at your agenda item on this elevator and how to pay for it. And I had no way of, as a budget committee member, of thinking of making any comment about it because I had no idea what was left in the various line items. So my request would be, and I assume these documents are available by email, that each of us 3 citizen members of the budget committee be sent each month by email that report as it is generated, and then we can be better prepared to deal with the budget come May. Thank you.
I think that's a great idea, and I think we could make that happen.
Thank you very
So,
much.
Completely agree. It's fine. Request. Do we need an action item on that, though?
We can request that staff.
Sounds like the
just
consensus
implement
of the
that.
board is to submit those monthly, balance
Revenue and
sheets. or-
expense
Yep.
and balance sheet. There are 2 documents. There's a balance sheet and a revenue and expense reports, and they're month to date.
If we could just email those to the budget committee.
Are they emailed to the commissioners?
No, we
No.
just get a link, then we go to one of the drives.
good.
But
Okay.
it's an email of a very small file, very small. So it's easily emailed,
Very good.
or
Okay.
2 files, balance
All
sheet
right.
and revenue
Revenue
and
expense, yep. So we'll get on that.
Okay, appreciate it. Louise, you're up.
Louise Kallstrom, County Accountant. So what I'm bringing back to you is, per your request, a resolution that references Exhibits A and B. I gave you all copies of the resolution and the exhibits. Exhibit A is transferring from non-departmental in the general fund, $20,000, and then out of transferring that from the non-departmental other materials and supplies to the other requirements part of the general fund that are like their little departments. The other requirements is the IGS that increases the amount going to the 233 fund from 117,374 to 137,374. That leaves $24,000 balance for the non-departmental other materials and supplies, and I believe there's something already posted to that, so there it's about $20,000 left,
Right.
available of that little contingency that we set up during budget season last year. And Exhibit B is the 233 fund, and it brings in as a revenue the $20,000, adjusting that revenue budget from 117,374 to 137,374. And then after I spoke with Mr. Hansen, we took out $7,200 out of the annex carpet capital outlay line item, and we took the $41,099 from the courthouse roof capital outlay project. Both of those will be deferred into next year. And with the $20,000 revenue above, I'm going to put $68,300 into capital outlay jail elevator line. The last two numbers have little X's because I don't know what the next available number is. They will assign that when they actually put this account number into our GL.
Okay. So basically what you're saying is you're taking $20,000 out of the contingency fund and the rest out of
the rest, the
maintenance.
$48,000 out of the current maintenance budget.
Okay.
My understanding of this contract that you approved is that half down needs to be done before they'll start the contract. So once we approve this, we can do the check to do the half down and get the project started.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve this budget resolution?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second the motion.
Okay, any further discussion? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you
Thank
do all
you,
that
Louise.
just in that 30 minutes? You were gone?
Yeah, but I do need to make sure that Exhibit A and Exhibit B is signed probably by, because usually Mr. Hitt signs those, so I would like the chair to sign those two, and then all the commissioners need to sign the resolution page.
Okay.
But that those first supplementals.
And you probably
also
want
need
that
to
done ASAP, right?
Well, I need those to
This is fine.
to go to the.
It should actually be a supplemental budget resolution. Yep. So here's something for you all to sign.
We all got a copy of this.
Oh, okay, just sign one then.
Yeah, the one that has to have all the original and the one that's colored on the one that I'd like.
Oh, I don't see that one.
Here's a colored exhibit one.
Here
Is
is
this
the
the one
colored.
you want the signatures on?
Yes.
This is the one for signatures with the colored exhibit. Thank you, Louise.
Yeah, many thanks.
Okay, while we're signing, maybe you can set up, Commissioner Huxley can set up his report thing.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. I'll let you do yours and then I'll do mine.
And that's all I need. I'm free to go.
Thanks,
again.
Louise.
Thank you, Louise.
Appreciate it.
And then you're going to sign.
And thanks to the board for working that out. I know there were some bumps in the road on getting that
You're
thing
gonna sign
finalized,
here,
so
too.
Nice work.
Okay. And thank you to you for getting it down to brass tacks.
It it was presented to me as a pure road fund loan, and I was not comfortable presenting it to the board in that way. So, so I decided that we needed to have options for the board.
Okay, so
Okay, Commissioner Huxley, you have a
we need
report.
to get this.
What can we do for you, JJ?
out.
Or
We need to get out of this.
oh,
Did you want me to sign on this green line,
he's got it.
council huddle? The green one that says approved elected official or department head?
Yes.
Okay.
Who's it doing? The county administrator.
And then
Yeah.
he's
I'll sign it then too.
Give.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
This is the first one.
Do you want one to go to this, to,
This can just go
John
to you.
Jesuit?
Well, no, I gave him I gave him color, so this is just for the two commissioners here.
oh, okay.
And one more for county council. If we can just pass one down. John Jesuit already has these. Basically,
Thank you.
this was an article that was done, published last Wednesday, a week ago in the Curry County Reporter, in regards to my not running for re-election. And in this, what is very important, I think, to me certainly, and I hope to the people, is the dates. There are 3 declared candidates. I won't make comments on any opinions there, but I would just encourage anyone that really wants to serve the public and declare their candidacy to run. I put here the dates rather. There's Tuesday, March 6th, so it's a couple weeks off. Is the last day to declare your candidacy to run for this county commissioner position. And then right behind that, and I put this in to emphasize that their voters pamphlet and the date is just 2 days after that. And that is probably, in my opinion, the biggest bang for your buck, your dollar, if you are going to run, is you get that out to every registered voter that receives a voter's pamphlet would get your candidate statement. So I encourage some people with a desire to serve the people of this county with character and integrity. I would just encourage any individual with those attributes to file to run for the Curry County Commissioner.
So are you going to go sailing in your retirement?
No comment. Okay, the next,
The lawyer's
because there's still 10 months of hard work left, as far as I'm concerned here, through the end of the year, through the end of December. But I said it was a very nice article they did. They also published that in the Port Orford News, so it hit the North County, and they were good enough to publish in its entirety the state of the county address in both those publications last week. The next one, and we've had, and this will take just about 3 minutes to run through. This is, there have been so many, and I'm not addressing the reporter here, but the journalism in general, more in the South County, such inaccurate, egregious, embarrassing publications that I'm addressing some of this here, and it was very recently addressed to about 17 newspapers throughout the state of Oregon also. So these are, again, black and whites. The administrative assistant, Jesuit, has an original color, and he'll also have the original electronic document here. Okay, I'm going to get off here, and then I'm going to go to, okay. Let's see if we can. This is just going to take about 2.5 minutes to run through, but this has to do with journalism. It's 14 pages. Again, I'll just let it run through. It has to do with what is and is not acceptable journalism. And some of the things recently that were, this is actual font size, were directed at the video company that does these meetings. Basically an attack, this is a waste of taxpayer money, and ultimately the individual had the wrong web link. And it had nothing to do with the quality of anything. This was the response. Second, your link is incorrect. This was my original response back on February 7th to the parent company of the local affiliate here in the South County. I addressed some other examples of inaccurate. Here's one on the an ongoing lawsuit with the county as far as misinformation. There was a recent one with the vote on the annexation for grazing properties that we had. This was also some examples of, again, the right of free speech, which I absolutely support, but within reasonable parameters. And these links here in the blue are, in this case it's a video link. This is also on a video, but the others are links and sources to these documents. This had previously been sent as a link to the owners of this affiliate here in the South County. And it was specifically sent to those two named individuals. And again, this is what journalism is not. And these are comments from a reporter that then does an article on the subject. And this is the last page. I will get out. And those are my comments. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Can we have a little discussion on questions on that?
On questions?
Well, Commissioner Huxley, you mentioned something that I think was very good.
I'm not going to respond.
Well, you can try. You can hear me out before you backhand me. 10 months, you said we've got some important work to do, and that was music to my ears. So I put out my plan for 2018. Do you have a plan on how we can direct this county and perhaps in the interest of or the reality of losing a year, 2017, certainly supported by my concern that the policies and procedures are the paramount priority right now. Do you feel you have some definitive ideas on how we can proceed and perhaps get together and work closely together and get some good accomplishments? So I'll assume you don't have a plan. I just
Okay,
saw,
I think we're going
I saw a lot of
to-
blame there on other
This
people.
is not what this
Yeah,
commissioner
this
comments are
commissioner
about.
comments.
Chair.
But this is the only time we have to talk, sir. We don't have another chance to talk.
You are the chair.
Well,
So
you know what? Everybody had their chance to do the commissioner comments, so let's just cut it off at that. We do.
made more enemies. That's really unfortunate for this county.
Okay, we are going to postpone this meeting or take it into executive session after lunch. We'll take a lunch break until 1 o'clock and then come back and have an executive session under 192.660 to consider the employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent, and also 192.660 2F to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. So we will adjourn until 1 o'clock and then come back for the executive session. So we're going out of the public session right now.
So it's 12:01. So we're just going to Chair, are we recessing then for lunch?
Yeah, we're recessing for lunch and then come back at 1 for the
Okay.
executive session.
So 12:01.
Okay.
Is our executive session going to be relatively short? Or do we know?